Hi, my name is Lauren Phillips. I'm one of the visual arts teachers at the Gwinnett School of Mathematics, Science, and Technology. And today I'm going to go through really quickly my presentation. This is actually a presentation that I did at the Georgia STEM Forum last year, which is a great place, art teachers. I encourage you highly to attend that conference when it comes back. It's usually in October. But it's a great way for us to share all of the amazing learning that happens in our classrooms with people who are outside of our classrooms, like our administrators and other teachers in other subjects. Um, we've all hopefully have some experience with crafts, whether it's with family members who did crafts like quilting and knitting, or if we did crafts ourselves. Like I love the make and do books. I guess that tells you how old I am. They were some of my favorite things to do. And so when I became a teacher, teaching crafts was something that I felt was really valuable. My students seemed to really like the crafts projects we did at every level. I actually taught rug hooking to middle school kids before I taught a smaller version to elementary school kids. And once I got the hang of it, it was amazing. Now I'm really lucky. I get to teach a crafts class at GSMST. This is my second year teaching it, and it's been really interesting since we've gone digital. I have the majority of my students are at-home learners. So we've been able to adjust by having them use things that they have already at home, like for an embroidery project. When we usually do that at school, we have a piece of muslin that I have the students create a design and then use all the stitches that we've learned. But this time, for students at home, they had the option of embroidering clothing or doing a pillowcase or something else, which I think they enjoyed and kind of showed how they could apply their learning in different ways. But we traditionally do lots of media, paper projects, clay projects, which is another media we're going to adapt. Normally we do clay, a stoneware clay that has to be fired, but most of my digital learners said that they don't have a space at home that can get dusty. Their parents don't want that in their rooms. So we're using air dry clay for them, but my face-to-face students will still get to use the stoneware. So a lot of fiber classes, fiber projects, lots of really interesting ways of using different media. One of the great things about crafts is that it has traditions that stretch back for hundreds of years. When thinking about the connections to STEM, a lot of traditional crafts processes were greatly impacted by the Industrial Revolution and continue to be impacted by technology today, whether we're creating fibers for new types of clothing that are more durable. And that's one of the things I talk to my students about. We talk about our crafts histories, like whether we have grandmas or aunts or moms or even dads. My dad does woodworking. So that's definitely a craft process. So we talk about different cultures who do crafts. That's another great thing is that crafts can really incorporate not just traditional art history, but all of these other groups that may not have representation in our curriculums, which is really nice. So these resources I'm showing you are all in my slideshow. You can click on the links. Craft in America is a great one. It's a lot like Art 21. So it's contemporary craftspeople working in a variety of media. I also talk to my students about potential fields of study and careers. Like here's a PhD you can get at University of Georgia in fibers and technology or textile sciences, but also things like ceramics. Ceramics are not just objects that we make that we use like to eat out of or things that have utilitarian purposes. It can also have purposes in developing different technologies that we can use for other means. And even the study of math. Like this is a great article about how mathematicians at Georgia Tech are studying knitting and how fibers can bend and twist and applying that to these very abstract math problems. So everyone's using crafts, basically. It has so many connections. And I think one of the reasons why my students really like the class is because it also is a stress relief for them. Most weeks we have a lot of studio time, which means that students are expected to work on their own. They don't necessarily have to get on our video platform. We use Zoom in Gwinnett. I'm always available. So if I have a student who's having an issue with one of their projects, like right now we're weaving, and so I'll have students come on and get more help if they need it. But other students who feel secure in their designs, they can just continue to work that day, hopefully away from a screen, maybe in a different spot, away from their computers. But it's been, I don't want to say it's been easy to teach both in person and digital. It definitely has its challenges, but um, crafts has definitely been something that has been easier to manage as far as the materials than I thought. I know a lot of teachers have concerns when it comes to crafts. There's a lot of prep, and that's true. Compared to drawing, there's a lot more prep involved in crafts, but a lot of it, and even in elementary school, when I taught elementary school, that prep can be pushed on kids. So my encouragement to you, if you're thinking of doing a crafts project, in your classrooms is to start out with something you know. Don't start out with a craft that you might have to learn. Like, for example, I was thinking of doing basketry with my students. And I realized that instead of doing one type of basket, we might actually incorporate like a cheap material like raffia instead of doing cord. But basically kind of working through this first before teaching it, which I know we're all taught that, but sometimes we all try to skip spots because we just don't have enough time. Um, as far as the demos, I record all my demos. I don't record them ahead of time. I just don't have the video editing skills to produce my own videos, but the internet, as you all know, are filled. There's already a lot of tutorials out there, especially for things like weaving. There's an amazing amount of video tutorials for things like that. So there's really no reason for me to create my own. I can just put those links to my students. And like I said, if they still have are having issues with doing a certain type of stitch or a certain type of weaving, or when we're working with clay, like constructing clay, I can give them that one-on-one attention during our asynchronous days. And so they're able to get that more easily. But my advice for everyone who wants to do more crafts is, one, work with the materials you have. Crafts traditionally have been a field where you recycle things. Like if we think about quilting, it's using scraps of fabric that we don't want to throw away and piecing them together to make a new object. Using scraps of yarn, paper. There's a lot of great paper scraps, whether you're recycling magazines to make beads, or creating, even if you want to do something as messy as paper making. We're probably not going to do that this year. That's normally a project we do in the classroom when all my students are with me face to face, but which can still do book arts. And there's a multitude of different types of book art constructions we can still explore using things like copy paper. It doesn't really require expensive tools. I do have my students let me know if they need a tool that they can pick up from school, and I pack up those materials for them. Like I will be packing up air dry clay for my at-home students to be able to make their materials, and that way they won't have to come back and bring their clay to fire. So it does require adaptation, which we're all doing now, but I feel like crafts can really open up all these different avenues and all these new ways of thought, especially when you check out how many artists incorporate craft techniques in their work, even fine artists. There's really not that boundary anymore between crafts and arts. There's several craft artists who are doing amazingly collaborations with computer scientists and creating these things that we might think of more as sculpture, but they are using traditional crafts processes. So you can really take it in any kind of avenue you want. I find that teaching a crafts class at the high school level, we've been able to do a lot more connections to artists of color, to artists from communities who, like I said, are not part of the historic Western art history canon. We've been able to really explore our own personal histories as well, which has been amazingly cool. So I look forward to answering any questions you might have and continuing this conversation. I think crafts is very worthwhile for any age level. Once students get it, they are off and running and coming up with amazing things. Thank you so much for watching.